Hello and welcome back to On the Workbench. This is part 3 of my 2020 Toolbox Tour series. Let's jump right in and pick up where part 2 left off. If you missed a previous part, I'll put a link up in the card and in the description below. Let's get it back into the tool. Now moving over to the other side drawer, we've got air tools. And so over here, I've got all my nailers. So here's a brad nailer. Staplers, I've got a variety of those. My Astro pneumatic paint gun. My wheel stud installer, I've got that in there because that's likely going to be used with air tools. Air tool oil. The air hammer, very important. I can move this out of the way. Then I also have my Astro pneumatic tire inflator gauge on top. My Proto stubby air impact gun. This thing is a beast and is amazing and is well worth what I spent on that. Had another video on that, and that has definitely been a great tool to have. Other things down here, I've got flip lug nut sockets. And we've got some torque sticks. This is branded Husky, but I believe these are actually by Gear Wrench. These have worked well. And then we've got a few other oddball things. I've got, let's see if I can move these tools around here. Here we go. Here's a pickle fork. I've got a handful of pickle fork sizes kind of buried back there. Extra nails for my pneumatic nailer, extra parts. Then I've got my air hammer bits buried down there. Extra tape for pneumatic fittings. My Mayhew adapter here, put a socket on there to be able to beat on a socket with an impact socket to help to loosen a stubborn fastener. I got those in the 3/8 and 1/2 inch. Again, more air tool bits. Got a whole variety of those. Variety of extra fasteners and extra air tool connectors. You never know where you're going to need to replace a connector. I've had a few times where I've just, where I've had a connector break in some way that had to be replaced, and it just keeps everything working easier by having a handful of those extra parts floating around. Extra nails. Those are framing nails for my big framing nailer. I've got a pneumatic one of those that's not in this drawer, but still I've got all my pneumatic parts are generally in this drawer. All right, moving up, we've got power tool accessories. So what I've got here, I've got cobalt drill bits over here, regular drill bits here, kind of a hodgepodge. I've had to replace a few of these in the index with different bits. Still fine. Collection of hole saws back there. That's the pilot bit that goes with the hole saws. Here's this weird cutoff tool. I'm not sure I'd recommend this by having this much of a flap disc exposed, but I don't remember. I think someone gave that to me. I've never used it because I'd rather actually use a proper tool with a shield than that. But I think it also came with this little buffing disc and a few other options I have to use with that. I also have my box of left-hand drill bits back here, and then this box here are other bits that I have. So this is a few things like some screw extractors, hex to 3/8 socket adapters, extensions, some extra drill bits, specialty drill bits. Like here's one bit here that's designed to be able to cut sideways through thin material. See another little router collet. Pilot bits, bolt extractors, masonry bits. So this is kind of my hodgepodge dumping ground for random bits. Look at the other side. And over here, I've got my impact driver bits. So these are the 5/16 bits. They're a little bit larger. I've got a few extras of those. A bunch of other insert bits of random sizes. My drywall dimpler bit. I need to make another dedicated video just about that. That's really wonderful for drywall. Put that aside. And then elsewhere in the store here, you can see I've got my power tool batteries. These older Porter cable ones required this extra adapter tool. If I can call it a tool to be able to check how much power was left in them. Jigsaw blades. And then inside of here, this little piece of pipe with a cover are my reciprocating saw blades. And then buried back here is my very favorite reciprocating saw blade. And that is this Milwaukee flush cut blade. That works amazing for trying to flush cut anything with a recip saw during rough construction. Now I've got a couple other adapters back here, these flex bit adapters for trying, if you can't fit your drill or impact in, maybe you can flex it into place. So I've got 1 and 2 of those because there's a good chance if you're using one of these tend to break relatively easily. And I'd rather just get the job done rather than have to deal with going back to the store, and then I can deal with it later after I go to the store. Let's see what else we got in here. We got rotozip bits for my rotozip tool. Small grinding bits and polishing bits for the rotozip. Screw extractors. So in here we've got screw extractors. I think this is kind of fallen apart here. I know I've got at least one of these that's broken that needs to get replaced. So there's a complete set of those. Yep, here's my broken bit up here that I need to replace. More extractors. So these are, maybe you call them bolt outs. There's a variety of names for these. So these have the spiral threading on the inside here you can use to help get a bolt or a nut free if it's stripped and is no longer hex in shape. And then I've got my accessories for my oscillating multi-tool kept here. So I've got a variety of just these random power tool accessories. Moving up, we're going to get more and more exciting, I think. Next up are pliers. And maybe I've got too many pliers, but can anybody have too many pliers? I don't think so. So let's see where to start. I've got over here on the back, I've got this rack that holds my pliers. This is a Torin rack. It's magnetic on the bottom. So we've got this little small pair of adjustable channel locks. A pair of needle nose pliers there on the bottom here. One of my favorite pairs of pliers. I know I'm a little old fashioned. I really like just the traditional pair of pliers. These are where I could. I've got these Craftsman professional ones. I know they're no longer made. I think they were made by Western Forge, but the grips are just really comfortable and they've held up really well. So there's those pliers. Then I've got my linesman pliers, side cutting pliers, angle side cutting pliers. And then another of my, I guess I can't have all my pliers be my favorite, but another top choice of my pliers are these adjustable needle nose pliers that I've been able to get into a variety of places, whether it's pulling out spark plugs or other random things where it's just useful to be able to have the needle nose pliers, but to have a nice little gap between the business end of the tool when you go to pick it up so you're not pinching anything off. Another pair of needle nose pliers. Then I've got some random Nipex pliers. So here's a wire shear tool for cutting bulk wire. Small compact bolt cutters. I've used these for cutting a handful of screws and bolts. Comes in handy. Doesn't fit very well in this rack. Let's see if I can get this out here. Here we go, in nips. Get some use out of those every now and then. Kind of another oddball pair of pliers. Maybe I'll put those to the side here. Old hose tool pliers. These are just basic ones. I should probably get rid of those. I've got better options now. All right, so other pliers we have in here. I think you've seen these on my videos before. So then these are my K-Tool zip tie cutting, flush cutting zip tie pliers. I've got a handful of these adjustable pliers or channel locks. This wrap around here is hose clamp pliers. Those are snap-on. So the other end of the tool is over here. They're kind of a pain to store. A few of these locking pliers. They come in a variety of forms. The Nip-X pliers. The pistol grip Easy Red pliers that are kind of almost 90 degrees. Those are great for pulling fuses or relays out of cars or something else you just can't get a straight on view on because it obscures your view. Small pair of end nips. Fluid line pinch off pliers. Here we go. Here's another little oddball pair here. The pliers here, this is pointed on one end. You might call these fishing pliers, but again, work well. Then I've got a variety of these other reversible internal, external snap ring pliers for dealing with snap rings. And then over here are my long reach double X pliers. These are by Crescent. So I've got that in a bent head and a straight head. And then buried in here somewhere are the extra tips for my snap ring pliers. I don't know that you can ever have too many pliers. Oh, I forgot a couple others over here. My exhaust pliers for removing exhaust from exhaust hangers, and a pair of oil filter removal pliers. I guess you can call those pliers. Now we're going to move up again. This is my hammer drawer. So my hammer drawer here, I've got a handful of these Proto anti-vibe hammers. You can also buy these as Mac, but the Proto ones are cheaper. They work well. I've got a handful of these soft mallets, so this has reversible ends on it. I've seen this rebranded under a variety of names, made in America. And then I've got a bent claw. I think my straight claw one must be inside the house. Sledgehammer. Couple dead blow hammers, and then the other oddball thing, it's not really a hammer, but I keep in here, and that's my axe. Because every now and then if you're having a bad day, having an axe you can throw outside, yeah, that makes life a little more fun, and it also keeps it out of the reach of my kids if they're walking around the garage. And who doesn't need an axe in their toolbox? I think it's just a pretty cool thing to have. The only thing cooler than that would be to have an even bigger axe, but it fits perfectly with the hammers. Now, we're on to the ratchets. And I apologize, this is a little messy, but I've got ratchets and extensions in here. And so let's start here. The first thing in the front is my 3/8 torque wrench. And then it turns into a giant mess here. So then over on the right side, I've got extensions, my 3/4 inch extensions. And I've got some other longer extensions of various sizes, wobble extensions. You never know where you're going to need those. I've got my magnetic extension adapters in a variety of sizes. Another video about that. I think mine are all snap-on. And then we get into the ratchets. So I'm going to highlight a few of these ratchets. In the back is my 3/4 inch ratchet. It's all the way back to my 3/4 breaker bar. Don't need to break that out that often, but still have it. Also have this little baby 1/4 inch breaker bar in case I need to break something loose. That's a 1/4 inch that's stuck and I don't want to risk stripping a ratchet. That's a pretty useful tool to have. For some reason, I don't know, it seems like not a lot of folks carry or have those little 1/4 inch breaker bars. I've got a 3/8 breaker bar in here too. I know you can always adapt down, but you don't want to over torque something and break it when you're trying to use the breaker bar. And then I've got a handful of these other ratchets. So I've got these SKs. I don't know what I'm going to do with this. This is my 1/2 inch one. If you saw my video on these SK ratchets, you know I'm less than impressed with those. My original 3/8 SK that has the little green switch on it. Again, okay, but not super impressed with it. Other ratchets, my Facom ratchets, which are a Mac brand from France. These Craftsman round head ratchets, these actually work really well. You know, and I tend to go to these because of the non-comfort grip on the end. If I need something a little more fine tooth, if I need something a little more coarse grip, I've got a full set of the Craftsman raised panel ratchets. So here's a 3/8 raised panel one. This has actually done quite a bit of service for me. I think part of it's just because of the length that's on it. Let's see what else is notable here. One of my little favorite ratchets is this little Craftsman flex head ratchet. So this is indexing, but it doesn't lock. And this just fits in the palm of my hand rather nicely. Another favorite ratchet is this little 1/4 inch Fakem ratchet here. Again, fits right in the palm of my hand. I can turn it. Another go-to ratchet has been my Snap-on swivel head ratchet. I originally only got the 1/4 inch one, but I loved it so much I ended up buying the 3/8 as well, which is right here. This is the slightly longer 3/8, and that's worked well. This has gotten quite a bit of use and abuse on it. Probably should have not beaten on it so much. Something else. I've got one of these little palm ratchets. I got a 3/8 one of these a while back. Like, they're interesting, but I've found that pretty much anytime I would reach for that, I can just add an extension and put a ratchet on it. So I don't really find myself reaching for this very often. And this specific one, the knurling on the side is kind of slippery. So I feel like even the couple times I've tried to use it, I just can't get my fingers to stick to it well enough. But currently, my favorite ratchet is the Craftsman 84 tooth. I guess you call it the premium ratchet. And that's because the handle on this basically goes vertical as it comes back. I don't know if you can see that well on camera there, but the way that that beam or the handle kind of transitions its cross section, so it's easy to get nice downward leverage on it. Fortunately, those are not made anymore, but those are my favorite one right now. I've got that in 3/8 and 1/4. Those are kind of my go-tos. Another couple little neat things here is I've got these hand drive extensions. And so there's a 1/4 inch one. It's not hard to find a 1/4 inch extension that has a handle on it. This one has a pass-through, but I also have a 3/8. This is a Mac tool one here, and it has a little lock on it for holding the socket on. So I can take any of my 3/8 sockets, drop it on here, and then now I've got it as a hand drive extension with this nice little tri-lobe grip on it. Makes it easy to turn. I've only ever seen these from Mac Tools, and these are made in Taiwan. Before you get your too excited here, I know I wish they were made in America. I'm not sure where Mac is sourcing these from, and Mac is the only one I've seen with these 3/8 extensions. And I've got a few other impact extensions. And then one of the other newer tools, most recent additions here, has been my Mac 3/8 locking flex head ratchet. This is too new to me to really be able to comment on this, to say much about it, but this is my latest little toy, if you will, for use in my ratchet drawer. I probably don't need all these ratchets, but why not? Oh, one other one is this little bit ratchet. Drop your 1/4 inch bit in here, and it makes for a really low profile connection, so you can try to get in and out of tight spaces like that. Thanks for watching part 3 of the Toolbox tour. We're going to continue on to part 4. I'll put a link up in the card and in the description below for the full playlist. I will see you in a moment in part 4 of the Toolbox tour.